Hey, what's up, horror fans? This is Vincent DiSanti, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of The Ghost Files. Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Friday night. It is The Ghost Files, August 1st. Welcome back. It's been a couple weeks. I missed you. You guys are lighting up the chat tonight. I already got 40 people in the stream. You guys are definitely jazzed up about talking Friday the 13th and some Jason Universe, Crystal Lake, and potential movie news all tonight. We're going to dive into everything. Obviously, I thought I was going to be here last week. I ended up having some family in town, went out on the town, was actually at Fenway while the entire Jason Universe panel was happening at San Diego Comic-Con. But even though I wasn't on last week and I couldn't be here last week, I had some help. My good friend Hunter, Hunter Bolding, who is a journalist out of Los Angeles, who was doing a lot of tweeting out of the San Diego Comic-Con, agreed to do a little interview with me today, which I have pre-recorded, and it will be streamed later on in this stream, where we're going to dive deep into a little bit more about what you didn't read in the news, trying to get any of the last little nooks and crannies of news from the Jason Universe panel to Friday the 13th fans like you out there. But before we do that, we're going to say just a couple little things, like make sure you subscribe to this channel and like this video now while you're still thinking about it. If you want to support Ghost in the Fog, there is a link in the subscription to go and help that Indiegogo campaign out. I'm going to have some really cool updates on that project tonight. With all that said, I want to jump into the comments right now and see who is hanging out with us tonight. Mary Wallace was our first comment tonight. No way I'm first, or am I late? No, you are way too early. You did this like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. I know that Steve DMV is in the chat tonight. He's excited about the thought of a new movie. Wraith C16, looking forward to hearing about this. I hope you're still here. Crater Films is in the house tonight. Shot by Shot will be in the house tonight. Lamontre, what's up, man? Good to know. I know you're here. Robert the Wolfman's here. Zachary Ellison's here. So let's see. He says, absolutely disappointed that it's going to be a 15-minute vignette. However you want to spiel it. Really said that it's only going to be 15-minute short movie or what. We will dive into that later and talk about all that fun stuff. Who else is coming here to Crystal Lake Nightmares next week? That's a good segue. Why don't I jump into that real quick? And if I move over, oh my God, my background's wrong. I thought I did everything right and I didn't. It should look like this, but we might as well make it look like this. So next week, I believe you guys, let me see, which is the one I want. That's websites. Showing time. There we go. Nice and big. So there we go. Next week, as you guys know, Crystal Lake Nightmares is finally upon us, August 8th through 19th. It is the LAX Hilton. I'm going to be there looking like this. They made a nice little thing for me without Never Hike Alone 2 on it, but that's fine. Director, Ghost Jason, producer, all the things for Never Hike Alone. I will be there. I hope you guys are going to come hanging out. It's at the Los Angeles LAX Hilton, 5711 West Century, August 8th through 10th. I will be there all 3 days, but I won't be alone because Andrew Lady, Brian Forrest, and Lennon Hobson will be joining me. We're actually going to be sitting two to a table. And we'll be hanging out, so I'll probably be sitting with Drew. Tom Matthews and Vinny Guastafaro are also going to be there. I've also heard that Roman Guastafaro, who plays Deputy Dispatch, will also be, I think he plays actually Deputy Boltman, really. Well, Deputy Dispatch in nickname form. He's going to be there as well. We're all going to be signing autographs. I'm going to have Blu-rays and VHS tapes and some pins and some 8x10s, some brand new 8x10s that I have ready to sign, so they'd be pretty good. Compared to everybody else, our signatures are going to be cheap, so come get the discount signatures from the fan filmers, and then go see everybody like Kane Hodder, Lauren Marie Taylor, Tom Matthews is going to be there, Adam Marcus is going to be there, Ken Krisinger, Judy Aronson, Tracy Savage, Larry Zerner, so many names. Rob Heaton is going to be there on Sunday, director of Friday the 13th, Part 8. I'm so excited about meeting him. My other big meet that I really want to meet is Vincent Dupree from Part 8, Julius. and also the legendary Tom Morga, who is one of the only Jasons who's still kicking around that I haven't met yet. So I got to meet Tom because he's one of my favorites. I think he did a great job in Friday the 13th, the new beginning. But if you're going to be at LAX's Hilton and you're going to be at Crystal Lake Nightmares, you can also catch a screening of the Ghost Cut. Yep, we're doing the entire 2.5-hour 4K version of the Ghost Cut at Crystal Lake Nightmares, the entire kit and caboodle, front to back, not skipping a beat. This is the fixed version, the one that I put up on YouTube that had the issues with the spelling issues like they usually do, because I overlooked that stuff. This is the fixed version, so that's going to be good and ready to rock. We're really, really excited about being able to share that. In other film festival news, my next project, The Bonding, the werewolf one that I told you guys about, actually just took home Best Short Script at the Tokyo Horror Film Festival. So I just want to say thank out to Yuri and everybody at the Tokyo Horror Film Festival for awarding this script with that. They were very complimentary of the work, and there's plenty more festivals coming up, so I'm looking forward to making more announcements about where this script is landing. We are fast tracking in a way production behind the scenes. We've actually moved pretty quickly in pre-production with some stuff with this, and we should have some stuff to share, more stuff to share with you later on this fall, with possible production this fall with our first original short film, or one of the first original short films that I've been able to do in a while. But I'm really, really excited about this. And speaking of original projects, the other thing that is right around the corner is Ghost Chicken. And right now I'm revealing to you the sneak peek of the upcoming cover for the graphic novel that we'll be releasing on Kickstarter. That's going to be launching in a few weeks. I'm partnering with my good friends at Apostrophe Books, Ethan Scott Gregory. Him and I have been working on this for the whole summer. It's sort of been like our little passion project off to the side. We're really excited about Ghost Chicken coming. We're going to have more artwork to share with you. We're going to have lots of really, really cool stuff. Sort of like the next thing that I'm going to show you, which is an update on 3D character Jason, which is available on the Ghost in the Fog Indiegogo campaign right now. This is the 3D model that is going to be, anyone who bought this, this is what it looks like. I thought I saw Linda in the chat. I'm going to have to go back out there because I think you got this one for your little one. But this guy, I mean, he's going to be pretty decently sized. And so he's in the throwing axe position. We thought that that would be a really cool thing. He'll come with that little plate to stand on. We may add some stuff to it like grass or something. But overall, for the most part, this is going to go into production soon. We're going to get a test model done this weekend, and we can start producing them very, very soon. And the last thing for show and tell before we dive into the meat and potatoes of what this week is about and everything that we want to catch up on Friday the 13th is I have an update on the Friday the 13th video game. We have our very first create your own character has been created. This is Vicky. So as you can see, the detail is actually pretty rad. I don't want to like share pictures without anybody's permission, but we can't share this because we worked on this and showed it and got the permission. But this looks pretty much just like Vicky. They're going to be very lifelike. So those of you who got the create your own character, you're going to have a pretty rad character in the game. I was super happy to see this morning when I checked in with Robert. And speaking of Ghost in the Fog, I saw the first animated kill this week. Holy crap. I'm so excited for this. I started cutting in new dialogue from Chelsea, Rebecca this morning, and Diego. I got to say, I don't know if Chelsea's watching, but her dialogue is so good. She's an amazing actress. We are so lucky to have her. It punched up everything right away as soon as I dropped her in, and I'm like, here we go. I can't wait to record her. So we're actually recording Chelsea and Zoran from Dead Meat on August 12th coming up pretty soon. So that is all the updates as far as Womp Stomp Film goes. Let's get into the world of our good friends. Hold on, I'm getting there at the Jason universe and Friday the 13th and Crystal Lake and everything like that. So as you guys know, there have been a ton of news breaks in the last few weeks. First of which, there have been a lot of casting news coming out of Crystal Lake. There's been a lot of confusing casting news. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about first before I dive into the San Diego Comic-Con. That stuff, I'm going to save that stuff for last because that's the meatiest stuff. And we're going to dive into questions then. So again, I'm going to remind everybody, if you want to ask a question for a previous segment, a super chat is a good way to pin your comment. And that way I'll see it later on and I can come back to it. But while I'm talking about each segment, I'm going to be pretty focused on sort of catching up on the news. So just to kind of catch you guys up on that. But I do appreciate you guys dropping comments and stuff like that. I didn't run all the way through. I saw Greg was in the chat. Liana's in the chat. Everybody here, Dr. Functional, mainly Jason's here. Where'd you go? I just saw him. Bam, mainly Jason, and everybody. I saw you, Newman. Davey Deathray's here. What's up, dude? So before I jump into this stuff, because this is going to get like there. And look, Liana's right on top. Anyway, I can nudge Go Jason to stop motion animation, asking for a young fan. Yes, in fact, there's a little bit of stop motion on the Womp Stomp page, but we will go into that. Stop motion is something I am going to bring up. In fact, our new Beto, our new animation director at Mako Animation, is actually has a lot of experience with stop motion. His previous job was the most expensive stop motion project ever produced in Mexico. So I already brought this up to Juan as something that we think we can do. And I think if you guys saw the figures that I brought on a few weeks ago, I brought on the actual figure of Jason. We were talking about something like that's articulated that we could do. I also have a good friend of mine, Carolyn Gare, who does a lot of stop motion projects. Shout out to Carolyn, EP on all of the films. She does a lot of stop motion projects. So we'll definitely kind of go into that. So, hey, and Ghost Jason's in the chat. We always know that's a good day. And Corey D. Hey, Vince, you're going to be at Silver Screen Con this year. I'm trying to get in. We're working on that. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to go to a little segment called News. Where I'm going to pull up the news. I'm in the wrong thing. That looks more right. So I was already looking at stuff before, but our good friends at, let's just do this real quick. Shout out to Friday13thfranchise.com and Jason Parker and everything that he does. Good buddy of mine. We're going to go through some articles that released over the last week to see that we missed. One of the things that we missed while I was gone was the announcement that Zachary Branch is going to be the adult Jason Voorhees for Crystal Lake series. Now, there was a lot of, we talked about Shyler White last week or a couple weeks ago, and then I think we brought up Zachary Branch and there was a little confusion. We can confirm that Zachary Branch is the Jason on the show. And he's around 5'10", 5'11", $180. He's sort of on the light side. He is more of a Steve Dash because Steve Dash wasn't that big of a guy either. But if you ask me, and just sort of a roundabout way of like, what does this mean for adult Jason moving forward? I really think that this is an in-between, like tween Jason that we're going to get to before we get to adult Jason in later episodes. So maybe this is sort of like Jason is small. The Calum actor will be the small Jason that we meet and goes quote unquote missing and drowning. Years are going to pass by. Pamela is going to come back to camp and murder people and finally get murdered. And by the time that happens, we see that Jason's been alive this whole time and he's older. And then when we come back for season 2 or season 3 or whatever that's going to be, you're going to see Jason 5 years later from that in an even more grown stage. That would be my guess. And that Shyler White, the actor who they talked about, would be for the Sweet Revenge stuff. So Zachary Branch, this is his IMDb. This is him. Jason did a good job going over his stuff. He's let me see. He was on Monarch Legacy of Monsters. He had like a little bit role. CBS's Blue Bloods were a little bit more where he did stunt work. So he is a stunt actor. If you go and check out his stuff, he has a lot of stunt work. He skateboards, does all this fun stuff. So this is your new Jason Voorhees. He's going to be at conventions very, very soon. So keep an eye out from him. And, pretty soon we're going to get a lot of word back from all that fun stuff. The other interesting tidbit for Crystal Lake that I'm really interested in is veteran actress Nancy Nagrant, cast as Steve Christie's relative in Friday the 13th Crystal Lake TV series. Her name, I believe, is Kay Christie. So what's really interesting to me about this is I don't know exactly what her role is, but what I love about this is the involvement of the Christie family. I've always been interested in what their family lineage is, how it ended up that Steve Christie became the last surviving Christie and the only person interested in reviving Camp Crystal Lake. There's sort of like a really cool generational trauma story that was never ever developed outside of the first movie. We never heard hide or hair from the Christies in any of the sequels. I thought that that was always one of the biggest things that, and I know if I was ever to come back and do a Friday the 13th film and start from scratch, the Christies would be one of the first places I would start for mining story and things like that. So again, the series is called Crystal Lake. This is much as a story about the town and the people and Pamela and Jason. It's everybody. It's how this town was affected in a similar way. You know, just, I mean, it makes sense because Brad worked on, you know, Welcome to Derry, but it is the Derry, Maine of, you know, New Jersey. And it just so happens that their curse or whatever that is going on in this town is different. Or is it that it's before and after Jason Voorhees? And that's what I really love about this, like the idea of this series. It's like you see a town that was functioning in one way, and then the Voorhees came through and it has never functioned the same again. And I think that that's such a powerful thing that, like, that's why we're doing a series. It's tough to cover that in one movie, and this is a great way to sort of like envelop, like, this is the world of Friday the 13th. So if you aren't excited about the show yet, I really hope you're excited about that, and the fact that a Christie is going to be there, that's going to be wonderful. So let's start to dig into some of the stuff with the Jason Universe Comic-Con roundup. Obviously, Sweet Freedom was a huge part of that. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's do a quick little thing. Before we do into that, I'm going to get into my interview with Hunter, and we're going to talk about Hunter Bowling, and we're going to, you know, talk about some of those things as far as, you know, what we went over here. But here's just a quick little roundup. You know, waiting patiently for the Jason Universe panel to begin last night in hopes of hearing discussions of upcoming projects, hopefully get some glimpses of either Crystal Lake series and all that fun stuff. We did get some encouraging news, and it was basically like this. We met Robert Barsimian, who says after 45 years, they want another 45 years of Jason, and they're listening to fans and taking their opinions into account. And he's being, he says that he thanks us for being patient while doing it. Robbie Barsimian Robert Jr. says the new movie and new game are coming to the Jason universe. There was the first look of the Crystal Lake series shown off from the sets of the filming on and some of the practical effects used in the show. It shows off more of the actual town, but no look at Pamela Voorhees or the principal characters. We were shown the new mask. You can see it right there. Obviously, I went off on that in Twitter. And then the new teaser trailer for Sweet Revenge. So those are the things that we know about, and I think that we're all pretty well versed on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into this interview. I'm going to go away for a little bit. This interview is probably about 20 minutes long. It was a fun conversation. Hunter is a bright young dude, big Friday the 13th fan, and, you know, it was a lot of fun to talk to. So we're going to go into some of this stuff, and we're going to cover these things. And when I come back, we'll go into more in depth about how I feel about Sweet Revenge and sort of some of the direction based on what we saw at San Diego Comic-Con and what we talked about here. So please enjoy this little screening. Hey, what's up, everybody? Joining me tonight on the Ghost Files is journalist Hunter Bowling. Hunter, what's up, man? How you doing?
How's it going, everybody? Glad to be on the show. I'm glad to drop some knowledge about Friday the 13th.
Yeah, before we get started, why don't you just let our viewers know a little bit about yourself, where you're based out of, and how long you've been doing this?
So I'm based out of Los Angeles here. So I was at Comic-Con for the panel, and I cover everything at my outlet, that hashtag show. We cover everything from movies, TV, wrestling, toys, heavy metal music, basically everything you want under the sun. And I had the fortunate, opportunity to cover the Jason Universe panel at San Diego Comic-Con with a sort of press invite for all the people that were waiting outside. I got in to cover the event.
That's great. How would you say that was like the anticipation, you know, around Comic-Con, and then even getting in? Was there like a lot of people trying to get into this specific panel?
So at Comic-Con, for the smaller panel rooms, they don't, well, I guess all the panel rooms in general, Hall H, they don't clear them between the panels. So they don't say, everybody get up, get out. They say, you know, if you want to stay, to stick around. So if you want to sit around for a panel before or two panels before, you can sit there and move up as people leave. So there was a line outside of people for room 5AB, basically since the day started, whether it was for a different panel or anything else. People were excited to get in for this information about the Jason universe. They were excited, whether that was because they were giving away free stuff or because they just wanted to know about all the stuff that they're doing, because we haven't really had all that much information besides the images that they've shown off.
How long would you say the panel in general lasted?
The panel was like an hour, maybe just a hair under an hour. It started on time, which was great. A lot of
Hmm.
panels at Comic Con don't start on time, and so then you end up having stuff at the end where like the host is basically speed talking to try to get through all of your information. This one, it wasn't like that. It started on time and it ended. It was I believe it was the last panel of the day anyway, so they probably could have gone overtime if they wanted to, but it was we were in there for about an hour with a bunch of horror movie fans, Jason fans. The crowd was electric. It felt like a Hall H panel, where if you haven't been to a Hall H panel, it's in this big ass room. It's where they do the Marvel and DC like movie trailers basically. And this was about a 500-person room, and you could feel the energy when you went in. There was a panel about horror movies before that I didn't get to catch, that I was kind of disappointed because I was at a different panel, but you could feel it when you walked in that there were people there. And then finally you had people that were cosplayed. Like I sat next to an adult Jason and Pennywise from the It movies next while I was covering this panel. So
Oh, that's great. So could you kind of break it down just really quickly? We can dive into each section. Well, how did it sort of break up? What were the parts of, you would say, the panel if you kind of broke them up into different chapters?
So basically, if you could do it just kind of like one and two, it would be the first half was about the Barsamian family, basically the stewards of Jason, Friday the 13th, Jason universe at this point, their family history with Friday the 13th and sort of how they got into movies. And then the second half was more about the actual meat and potatoes of what we wanted to see out of the Jason universe, out of the Friday the 13th. And then, sort of in the middle, there was like this sort of period where the moderator was asking about each of the panelists' sort of first memories or their experiences with Jason and Friday the 13th.
Okay, so for that first half, it was really a rundown of like the history of how the Jason universe basically came together with the Barsimians, and fill in any gaps that I'm missing here. But if I remember correctly, this was the original family that invested in Sean Cunningham to make the first Friday the 13th.
Yeah, so they said they had worked with Sean S. Cunningham on movies before this, and they basically Halloween came out and changed everything for horror movies.
Hmm.
Um, and they had worked with Sean Cunningham before on two movies, and they wanted to
Hmm.
work with him on something that was similar or in the same vein as Halloween, because they wanted to get in on that sort of slasher boom action.
Hmm. Was Robert there as a part of the steward to have that conversation originally, or was that someone else and Robert is one of the next in line? Was he there at the original, or was he sort of come along?
So there's Robert Barsamian, who's the current, I guess, the oldest member of the family
Yes.
now. There's Robbie Barsamian, who's his son,
Hmm.
and the person who was there working with Sean Cunningham and everybody on Friday the 13th was their dad. Was Rob Barsamian's dad, Robbie's
Yeah.
grandfather. So the patriarch of the family, who's no
Okay.
longer with us, but they're carrying on with his sort of work in horror movies and movies in general.
Okay, that's what I originally thought, because I wanted to sort of clear up, like, wait, were they really there at the beginning? Because I thought that there was another entity. It's almost like the Mancusos, how they came in from Paramount for a while, and then it sort of went from Frank Sr. to Frank Jr. So there is a little bit of that. I mean, they were obviously around. A lot of the behind the scenes photos that have been released the last few days from like Friday the 13th franchise.com and like have now gone to Bloody Disgusting. That seemed like that was a part of the panel, some of those photos and behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, so they had some of those up on a screen on the side that was kind of difficult from my edge of the room to get pictures, because they put the press on not in the dead center or on that side. They put us on the, I guess if you're facing the stage, the right side of the room,
Hmm.
so I could get pictures of the panelists, but the screen was harder to get pictures of,
Hmm.
especially. And then for certain portions of the panel, they told us, hey, don't film anything or take any pictures, because it's like the Crystal Lake behind the
Yeah.
scenes footage or stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Definitely. I definitely want to kind of talk to you about that. I feel like a detective, like you've been so long, it's like the memories fade. So we got to get it while the memory's
Yeah.
fresh. But we'll stick with the first part. Can you tell from anything that's been released lately or that you've seen released online? Was there anything that you saw there that hasn't been released online as far as like behind the scenes photos that fans maybe haven't seen before?
Um, I'm trying to remember. I think most of the behind the scenes stuff that they were showing off was either Barsamian family stuff about their like movie theaters that they opened originally,
Oh.
or that the the grandfather had started in certain businesses and then moved into movies after. So
Mhm.
he started in like trampoline parks and then moved into drive-in theaters and built the drive-in theater himself, or
Oh,
their own
wow.
drive-in theater himself and all of that, and made the projection booth. So it was really just kind of talking about, I think what they wanted to present to people and present to fans was that this is a family effort. This is not like some big nameless, faceless corporation studio that's kind of just, working from the shadows here. They wanted to be front facing about it and say, hey, this is a family effort. It's
Mhm.
us doing this out of sort of us being fans because we've been there since the beginning, and us trying to make right with the fans out there that have been
Yeah.
waiting for so long for new Jason content.
Yeah, I did notice during the conference that like yeah, the reviews for the Jason universe have been pretty mixed. I mean, the things that have coming out, I don't think that it's tough to sort of ignore that, fans have been, have had their thoughts about the mask, they've had their thoughts about the look of Jason and the way that things have been coming out and actually feeling quite the opposite in a way. I mean, I think that it's not, not trying to dig on them too hard, but it's sort of that's as a fan looking out at other fans reacting to things, that's actually the reaction they're getting. But what I did notice Robert say was that he did want to open up their sort of like their antennas are open to the fans and they're sort of listening. So I wonder, like, my question is like, I guess not so much. It's like maybe during the Sweet Revenge years and after that, the sort of like whatever comes next, especially with the game and the movie, which is something we could segue into a little bit. Because I don't want to spend all the time just talking about the Persimmon film. But that is something there. So moving on to that, one thing you did touch on that we can touch on for a little bit is the thought of a movie. There was someone from Atomic Monster there, but when we had talked, you said you didn't really get to talk much. You want to just talk about the Atomic Monster presence of it all because we haven't heard much about that.
So yeah, Judson Scott of Atomic Monster was in attendance on the panel. He was all the way on the right, if I remember correctly, and there wasn't any really anything with him. I kind of felt like he was the like every panel you go to, whenever you go to anything like this, there's always going to be one panelist that feels like, oh hey, you're kind of neglecting them, because like whether it's like a reanimator panel and Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs are there, then oh the composer's there, we kind of want to talk to the two stars.
Hmm.
This felt very much like that, where he was there and he was asked certain questions by the moderator, but it was really only during the, oh, hey, what are your memories of the Friday the 13th series? Why do you love it? That kind of thing, where it was very surface level and not like
Hmm.
anything that, the only thing that would suggest that Atomic Monster or Blumhouse are involved in any certain way was that he was there, because
Yeah.
otherwise it would be, why would he be there if they're not actively working in some way for this?
I did have I could confirm that Ryan Turek would have been there as well if he wasn't, working on the current Insidious film. So
Mm-hmm.
there is that sort of sense that there is, and obviously Jason Blum wants to be a part of this. He's been mentioning this for years. It makes a lot of sense too, that maybe that's all that was. And I'm surprised there wasn't more of a big deal because everybody keeps talking about how they want a movie. And that sort of being a showpiece, and them talking about like the moderator that got ignored, it seemed to be like a very big kind of like elephant in the room to ignore the fact that you have the everything that everybody wants is sitting right there at the end of the table and nobody wants to ask him a question.
Yeah.
Was there any open Q&A for the press or for anybody in the audience? Was there anything that came out of that?
There was no open Q&A. I think they wanted to really pack this one because usually the open Q&A happens at the end and they get in like 3 or 4 or 5 questions depending on the panel size.
Mm.
And they don't usually screen them too hard. So this way it likely would have been, if they see somebody from the press section getting up, they're probably going to might screen them a little harder, because otherwise the questions are usually stuff like, oh, like what are your favorites,
Mhm.
or basically like the stuff that the moderator was asking. Like it's very surface level stuff. So I'm kind of glad that there wasn't one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I would have loved to ask like, why is Judson Scott here? Does Atomic
Yeah.
Monster have something to do with this? But I didn't get to ask that. But otherwise, no, there wasn't any sort of fan interaction or fan Q&A. It was mostly just information out of the panel.
Okay. And then so sort of the meat and potatoes of the thing was obviously the sweet revenge, revealing the mask. It seems like from just using the eye test and you took some great pictures of it and those, I mean, I've since you've probably seen them go all over the internet, which is kind of cool. Um, you know, there seems to be actually a big difference from like the mask that they put on the posters and even the mask that you have. And we should actually probably take a look at it in a little bit. And then
Yeah.
the mask that Sherry Khan was holding up. Could you sort of like from your angle tell us a little bit more about the mask and how it looked in person and sort of that just your first experience of it?
Yeah, so she pulled out the mask, and there was no sort of like fanfare or like, "Hey, we're going to show off the mask." There was no drum roll. It was just she pulled it out of something like a bag or something by the side and said, like, "Here's the new mask that Greg Nicotero designed and worked on all of this." And so, basically, from what I saw in person, I don't know, maybe 50 feet away or however much to take the pictures. Thankfully, I got like two pretty good pictures of it that snapped really quickly, but. Uh, it looked like a prototype. Like all the people online that are, they can, I can see complaints about like the sort of the eyebrows or whatever, or the eye holes is like legitimate. Like, okay, yeah, that's a change to the design. But the fact that it doesn't look weathered or anything like that, like it's a prototype. I'm sure that you can see in Sweet Revenge that it looks more weathered. You can see
Mhm.
on the Spirit Halloween one, it looks more weathered. So I'm assuming that if they were going to stick this on somebody for a movie,
Yeah.
that the art department would weather the mask to make it look like it wasn't just off of the shelf.
Yeah, one of the things I've also noticed is just like because I was trying to connect the two dots there. There's obviously another photo that got around, a behind the scenes shot. There's a profile shot in Sweet Revenge, and I don't know if you've screen capped it like everyone else since. I mean, seeing it and thing, but like it has a very. And I was actually looking at the Freddy versus Jason, and I think I have the box somewhere around here. The Freddy versus Jason sort of um, it has actually that shape. It has a pointed nose, but it looked very rounded in person too. And I have a feeling that there may be a sense of like they're going in and getting in there and maybe digitally reshaping it in some shots or things like that. It looks like that's how they may be tackling it for this one, since they are working with a prototype. They were probably out there and doing it. I'm surprised they didn't bring like the screen used one with them. That would have been interesting for them to kind of talk. I know Mike P. Nelson kind of jumped into some stuff too, sort of talking about his history about kind of growing up. You did a great job covering that. I mean, as far as did they go into did Sherry or Mike or anybody on the staff sort of like we know they're talking about a game and that information is in there, but were they talking about any idea of like this is just the first of many type of ideas like Sweet Revenge that could happen in the Jason universe, or what is Sweet Revenge going to serve for them as far as in the greater good of the Jason universe, would you say?
So they didn't talk about sort of the strategy of starting off with what amounts to basically a 13-minute Angry Orchard commercial. We've
Hmm.
seen the Angry Orchard box. It looks like it's going to be a seasonal item that showed up just after Comic Con, I think, on Twitter and on the internet. But it would have been nice for them to see, because that's always a good question when you're talking to sort of creatives like this, is like, why would you start with this instead of something else? And maybe it's just a whole thing of like, well, we didn't want to start with a movie just to get everybody's hopes up and then make you wait for however long. Instead,
Hmm.
we could do this. It's a cool way to introduce Jason while also getting some sort of brand recognition, and then basically act as like a trailer for what we have as planned forward. Basically was what I would think about why they did it this way,
Hmm.
because obviously people have been waiting for a long time. This is a first time thing. It takes a long time to get a movie off the ground. It takes a long time to get basically any sort of entertainment thing off the ground like this. So this
Hmm.
seems like a smart enough logical first step, instead of just saying, "Oh, we'll have them in a commercial. It'll be stupid, and people will complain about like a 30-second Super Bowl commercial or whatever." Like those Super Bowl commercials that happen all the time where they try to fake people out with like,
Hmm.
I think the most famous one is that they tried to do like Crocodile Dundee with Danny McBride or something like that,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
ended up being like an Australia travel ad.
yeah.
I think that might have pissed people off more than if they were just like, "Hey, we're going to do a 13-minute short film."
Yeah, no, it definitely. I know that they, because I did, I've heard some reports behind the scenes about the general vibe, and it was definitely during sort of like the layover on the TV show where Jason Universe got antsy because they heard, fans saying, "Oh, well, we don't want Pamela for a season and blah blah blah, a whole season." There's a lot of misconception about like Crystal Lake is going to be a show just about Pamela for 4 seasons and like a 4 season prequel. They don't realize that it's a part one is basically season one, and then it goes into Jason's story, and we get two through wherever it goes in Jason's thing, and Jason will be the main star. Um, Originally, Brad Caleb Kane had shared something on his Instagram saying, "Hey, I'm going to be there, I think, next week for a sneak preview," but Brad wasn't there, correct?
He was not there. He was there in the behind the scenes video that
So
he
he
introed it basically.
Oh, great. Could you, so let's talk about that because I definitely don't want to run out of time with you here for this. So let's jump into Crystal Lake because there's a little bit, I think that's another thing that like we haven't seen anything for. They didn't release that behind the scenes stuff. Can you talk about Brad's introduction and then what did we see as far as like there were behind the scenes photos, but was there any screen use footage of the sets as well? So
So basically, what I'm trying to remember exactly what he looked like on set. I think it was on a dock. I want to say
Mhm.
of Crystal Lake, and he basically, just, hey, it's Brad Caleb Kane. I'm the showrunner for Crystal Lake from A24 and Peacock, and we're out shooting. We're really hard at work behind the scenes, really hard at work trying to get it done and trying to get it out for the fans to watch. And so here's some look at basically what we've been doing. And the footage that they showed, there was no it didn't look like there was anything that they were using that would be on camera. It was mostly just behind the scenes stuff showing off what the camp looked like, what Crystal Lake, the town looked like, the
Mhm.
aesthetic of it, the costumes, and they showed off one shot of a bloody bathroom that was like a white and blue bathroom with like blood spatter, basically.
Mhm.
And so they wanted to say like, hey, yeah, we are using practical gory effects here, so don't
Mhm.
worry about that.
That's really cool to hear. I mean, I never doubted that for a second, but it sounds that that's great that they understand that, they understand what fans are looking for. I've always had a lot of faith in the TV show that it would figure out. It's just so many different ways for it to explore. It's too bad that Brad wasn't there to dive in and really kind of answer, any other questions. Yeah, I mean that basically covers most of the thing. Was there anything else? I mean, what really stood out to you as far as like the overall vibe from the panel and sort of the energy that basically everybody from Sherry to the Barsimians to Mike and from Judd, what was their general energy from them as far as like did it seem like they wish that they could do more as far as like being able to resplit like this is what they could build for now or like what was the general vibe?
It definitely felt like they wanted to say more. I really felt like that like Rob Barsamian in particular, the older Barsamian in the family, he was talking like a mile a minute, and you could tell. I think he wanted to say more. Just I think everybody that was involved with the family wanted to say more so that they could have basically, this wasn't the main event panel of Comic Con, but like this would be something big coming out of it. And so Robbie Barsamian did slip in at the end, like, hey, by the way, guys, don't worry, we are making a new movie and a new game. Just we don't want to step on our partner's toes,
Hmm.
or not. That's not it specifically. I don't think he said partner's toes, but something along those lines
Yeah.
of we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but hey, we are doing this so you guys know that this is coming instead of just like people waiting and waiting and waiting for them
Mhm.
to announce a new movie. So he did specifically state sequel movie as well. He said
Oh.
sequel movie. So that's something to think about with what direction that they're going with the movies. And another thing about Sweet Revenge, it felt like it might be like a test run for Mike Nelson as like, hey, can you do this? If you can do this in 13 minutes and make basically what amounts to a Friday the 13th movie without any of the excess stuff, that maybe this might be a tryout of some sorts for him.
Oh.
So that also felt like it, but I'm not. That's just what I was, gleaming from it, not anything official that I've heard.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, for truth be told, like I think that like I've gone over at my show here. I'm kind of looking for somebody like a James Wan, somebody who's like a real maestro who has established, is kind of like one of the kings of the court of horror right now. Less or so an up and comer who has sort of been in remake world as it is.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't made an original film since his original film. And Wrong Turn has its critics and it has its thing. I watched it. I'm sort of middle of the road on it. So that would be rough for me to hear that because I feel like as a fan, I have eyes on a bigger prize is like who's going to be that director and really being excited for it to like somebody who could like bring the franchise up a level versus like okay it's still going to be the same old thing. It's they're not going to really going to update it. So we'll see about that. One other thing before I let you go, I also happen to be a huge Predator fan. We cover the Predator stuff too, and you mentioned being in the Predator panel. Can you give us like a quick breakdown of like some of the stuff that you saw in that panel and how excited you are for the upcoming Badlands film?
So yeah, the Predator Badlands panel, it started 15 minutes late, which was also part of why I was like terrified that I was going to miss the Jason Universe panel, because once a panel starts at Comic-Con, you can't go in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get passes to go back in, and so they won't let you in if you're late. And they started late. Kevin Smith comes out, starts to making jokes about his daughter Harley Quinn Smith, basically calling him old and all of that. And then they brought the panelists out and talked. And I was doing that live coverage on my works Twitter account. So at the time, typing a mile a minute, trying to get everything up as fast as people are on Twitter and on the internet. I did mention something about, they said that the Predator suit itself was an entire suit with the actor's face open. So you could see his performance, like Elle Fanning, when she's acting with him, can see what his face looks like as opposed to something that's just covering his face, which was nice. And they said that they tried to use as little CGI as possible. Obviously, the Predator face is CGI in the film. They showed us the first 15 minutes of the film that had some unfinished things. There were some funny bits at the beginning of it that were saying basically like, hey, this is an unfinished film. If you see anything that's unfinished or wireframes or basically storyboards, use your imagination, please.
Yeah.
Which was cool. It was nice to see how basically in between shots of just like what's going on, that there's an insert of a storyboard, and then, oh, they have this shot finished. So it's kind of weird to see how a movie gets made like that. But the footage, I know people were worried about like, oh, how is a Predator going to work as like the protagonist of a film? Like, because they've always been antagonists, or at least like ambivalent in all the movies. And it looks like this is going to work because it's sort of the story of like the runt of his family that is trying to, earn the respect of his father and the clan by killing this unkillable beast. And so he gets sent off to this, basically what they described as Australia as a planet, where everything you touch can kill you. Everything is poisonous. Everything is venomous. Everything is deadly.
That's funny.
And then
Australia is a planet.
yeah, and so that's basically what the inciting incident of the movie is. And so the footage led up to that. Before that, it was showing off these two Predator brothers fighting each other, trying to get over on one another to sharpen their skills basically. And the footage shown off, it was like, I thought Predator Hunter of Killer of Killers was the best Predator thing I've ever seen, and this is, from just like the small amount of footage in live action, it's going to be a spectacle that people are going to want to see, especially Predator fans. They're going to be just so over the moon for this. It looks like they're putting the time and effort that we would love to see all of our favorite franchises get into this with Dan Trachtenberg and the entire crew, basically.
That's really, really cool. That's really exciting to hear, especially after I feel like we all kind of got ripped off of seeing Prey in the theater. I hope that when this starts to come near out, they'll think about putting Prey as a preload into getting into this. Did they show that extra extended Killer of Killers thing with Danny Glover and Arnold Schwarzenegger and in that panel as well?
Yeah, they did. They mentioned that very quickly. They said, oh, hey, Kevin Smith said, yeah, Killer of Killers is great. And Dan Trachtenberg said, like, actually, we can announce right now that we have added this extra footage because we worked with, I think, Danny Glover and Arnold Schwarzenegger to get their likenesses for it. And so they added it onto Hulu. And so hopefully we do get a physical release of that as well, because it would go great with Prey and Predator Badlands when that does come out. But that's also exciting because I know people wanted to see Arnold Schwarzenegger. People wanted to see Danny Glover's character back in Predator. So if they're too old to act and do the action scenes now, animation is the next best thing that we can get out of it.
No, it really is. I say the same thing sort of about like Nightmare on Elm Street too. Like Nightmare on Elm Street and animation one works because the concepts are that out there that animation gives them a sort of a space to work, and that Robert Englund could still do your voice. Not to say that that's the answer to it, but it could have been a way to get some stuff done over the last few years. But you never know. So, Hunter, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I know you're watching Joe Bob tonight, so I hope you enjoy that. And we'll have to have you on the show again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on. This was great. Thanks for having me.
One more thing before you go, you got to show off that mask from San Diego Comic-Con.
I will show this guy off. So, like I was saying, the one that they showed off at Comic-Con was pale white. This one, if you can see all the detail and stuff, all the scratches, it's a fairly, for a Spirit Halloween mask, obviously, you can go buy this at Spirit Halloween when it opens. but it feels fairly sturdy for a Spirit Halloween mask. It's got your little puffy piece right there as well, so that your forehead doesn't get messed up. But yeah, it's a nice thing. You can hang it easily. So I'm glad they gave this out, and I'm glad that this wasn't limited to the panel as well. I'm glad that F13 fans can really go out and grab this if they want it.
That's really, really great. Well, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
So, wow, look at me. Boom. And now I'm nice and big. So thank you, Hunter, for coming back on. That was a great interview. We had a great chat this afternoon. I hope you guys enjoyed that. How much was that mask? He got it for free, Moy. He got it for free because he was lucky enough to be at San Diego Comic-Con, where I wish I could have been. So jealous of all the people that got to be in that room. So there's a lot to break down from that I really wanted to get into, which is basically the theme of tonight's episode, is that whether we like it or not, Jason is back. The wheels have hit the road. They are moving forward. We have, this isn't just an activation for the beer. This is also a short film that is happening. We know that there is a game happening. We know that there is a film happening, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that sounds like the Jason universe really, really can't talk about it. And sort of looking at in the way that things have been rolling out in the last couple of weeks, it's sort of like, I say this about my own projects. It's either get on the bus or get under it. And so the last thing I want to do is be under the bus on Friday the 13th projects, as much as I may have my gripes and my groans about certain things and the way they look and the way they're being run. At the end of the day, we do have Friday the 13th content coming, which is a good thing. And which is my favorite quote from the whole thing, is that we've had 45 years of Jason and we want to have 45 years more. So hopefully there is room after Sweet Revenge releases to see some changes in the Jason universe, and you'll probably see some more things coming up. And I think I can sort of break down a reason why they have been so locked into this specific look as far as their branding with the mask, the use of the Jason universe. And we're going to dive into that for just a little bit. I'm gonna go into there. So let me go back to sharing the screens. I've got to go back a little bit because I don't want to dive ahead. We're gonna go back to our panel. We're gonna talk about some of the stuff that's going on here. Obviously, here is the mask that he's talking about, and he does bring up a good point: is that this is an untextured mask. This doesn't have any dirt or grime on it. It is definitely like just for the mold to take a look at it. That's not what's being used in the actual short. Now, there is a behind the scenes photo going around, which I didn't upload tonight. I probably could have, but it would just be more dancing on the grave about what's there, because when we do look at the trailer, Jason doesn't look half bad in some of these shots. I mean, I don't know how the mask with the lighting ended up looking like this. I do feel, and I think I said it in the interview, that they are doing digital touch-ups on the eyes, and maybe the eyes are big in person for reasons that they actually always plan to go in and clean up the mask this way. But in this shot, not bad. In the profile shot, it wasn't bad. What I referenced to Hunter in the thing was this shot. This looks exactly like the shot from Sweet Revenge, if you ask me. And so this is obviously the classic mask. This is from the Freddy versus Jason box. So it is getting close there. I had sort of made my grievance, I think, with the fact that, there's a lot of fan filmmakers who have been out there who, besides myself, there's a lot of people out there who've been throwing a lot of money at Friday the 13th fan films, coming up with really wild original concepts. And so, obviously the first thing out of the gate for them is something that is very familiar. It is a bunch of kids showing up to a vacation rental, getting attacked by Jason. It's not rewriting, any sort of, history book. It's not messing with the lore. Jason, from a standpoint of, you can have your gripes with the trailer. I mean, I kind of found, I'm going to turn that down. I kind of found certain parts of it to be okay. Like, this is very generic. This does feel like a commercial, this little bit over here with them talking back and forth. She's holding, the apple cider. I said, like, oh, look, a Friday the 13th fan film now with 200% more apple. This scene I thought was kind of disappointing. This grab is not very good. Jason doesn't have his mask on. He's hidden behind her. It doesn't really quite capture, I think, the spirit that, Ari coming out of the lake, or even some of the stuff we did in Never Hike Alone did. There's some action here. That's obviously like a really nice shot. And then this is something I've always wanted to do and hadn't have the money to do, was a big door blast to do that. And he stabs him right there. So Sweet Revenge is coming out. And this has all been sort of happening. And what is it all centering around? Well, it's all this stuff. Let's go to here. Freaky season at Angry Orchard. I'm not trying to that's not gunshots. That is somebody's shooting the fireworks, if you hear that. But this is basically what we're looking at. This was the collaboration that they came up with. They're coming up with all these glasses. You know, they're the killer pack, which kind of glows in the dark. You know, you got blood orange. They got another one down here, crisp apple. And then what they have is this Sweet Party Revenge premiere party, which if you go to this Angry Orchard and Jason Universe Sweet Revenge premiere party, it's in New York, in Walden, New York, 2241 Albany Post Road. You can go to Eventbrite. The tickets are free. So if you are within driving distance right now, this is what I want people to really think about it. Don't look at that, Jason. Don't think about Sweet Revenge. Don't think about that. Think about what the Barsimian, like we were saying about this Barsimians, they're roadshow people. They created theater. They created events. That's what the family sort of came out of. Now this is starting to make a little bit more sense. Do we love the design? Do we love exactly what this has come around? Not really. You know, to some degree, the Sweet Revenge thing may win us over, because the more I thought about it, was like it could always win us over with the kills. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see. It's how they introduce Jason. You know, there's a lot of things that I'm sensitive about, but we'll see what they do. But no matter what this is, there's going to be a party where people can go and hang out. You know, it's going to be Jason themed. You know, look at this. Jason is on the side of like cases that glow in the dark at Halloween. Guys, Jason is back. You know what I mean? He's stumbling a little bit. You know, he kind of stumbled out of the gate, but you know, imagine if that was a straight up part 3 mask, or a part 6 mask, or a part 4 mask, or a part 7 mask, or something. You know what I mean? Like, start to think about it as if once they start to figure out how to get the stuff that we really like, or when they land, imagine if we loved this design, how cool all this stuff would be. And I think that that is something that we can look forward to, is that if this is what the plan is, that this is great. Now, if we get a movie, and now if we get a game, and all of those things start to transition into things like this, where those things are going to end up in as our Fortnite characters and all of that stuff, I think we just really have to Sonic the Hedgehog the best we can as a community to sort of update this mask and update this look, because I'm not completely convinced by it just yet. You know, this is the shot I was sort of talking about before, of like him coming out. Like, if you notice here, we're going to go real slow. There's actually hair here, so there's like a little bit of run. This feels like an older undead Jason. I don't know how this Jason relates to the Jasons that we know, so that's going to be an interesting thing to kind of think about. Going back, so one thing I wanted to talk to some people about is anyone going to this, please email us at wompstompfilms@gmail.com. We will get you a Womp Stomp Film shirt or a Ghost Jason shirt to wear to the party and promote Womp Stomp Films. Any chance we can get, I wish I could go to this. I'm going to be in LA this weekend, which is so infuriating to know that this was happening. And all of a sudden I found out about it when I'm actually going to be in LA working on Ghosts in the Fog. Because I would have driven to this. So there's going to be a lot of, fun stuff there. Going on. It looks like it's a fun weekend stuff. I know there are people in the area. So if you're going to do that, definitely go and represent, see if you can get in the Barsimian's ear, and let's start pitching some Womp Stomp stuff. Because I know that if they have this in their repertoire for what they need, there's a ton of stuff that I know that Womp Stomp Films and other fan filmmakers should probably pitch to them. And I would love to pitch this idea, which I'm going to come to full screen for. I've been thinking about it. The Jason universe is here. It's doing all this stuff. It's all this activations. Never Hike Alone has already played its part out. We have Never Hike Alone 2, all of that fun stuff. And I'm going to show you some cool stuff from that in a little bit. But I was thinking one thing that we might be able to push as a fan base is, imagine if we announced Never Hike Alone 3 and we could get Jason Universe to combine forces to help basically sponsor the crowdfund. we would go in and keep it as a crowdfund campaign and keep it fan engaged, but we would get the power of the Jason universe to push it to Friday the 13th fans to create Never Hike Alone 3 and really amp up the third and basically final film in the live action series. Never mind all of the animated stuff that we could do. We could do prequels, we could do anything, but just to have Never Hike Alone as an offshoot of Sweet Revenge, Never Hike Alone, it's the same thing. Yeah, Sweet Revenge, Never Hike Alone. It doesn't say Friday the 13th. We've been playing this game for the last 8 years. So I am saying that I believe that we have some secret sauce for the Jason universe if they ever wanted to come to claim it, no matter what it is. So that's just one thing that sort of like gets me excited as a creator to think that, like, if this is opportunity, I would love to pitch some of this stuff. And I'm sure some other people would too. So that's why I'm working on things like the bonding. That's why I'm working on original shorts, because you got to complete the original stuff before they will let you even do the remake stuff, even when you've already done the remake stuff better than some of the original stuff. It's an odd world we live in with the way Hollywood works, but we're gonna make it work somehow, some way. And overall, yeah, guys, I'm sort of, back and forth on all of this. But one thing I wanted to sort of go back over, for those of you coming out to Crystal Lake next week, I forgot to show this to you about everybody who's coming out. So if you guys go to the page, the Crystal Lake Nightmares page, look at all of the folks that are coming out. It's sad that 7 has so little. But you go down to the bottom, look at us. We get to be there. And look at this. Hey, Adam Green's going to be there. Dave Sheridan's going to be there. Felissa Rose is going to be there. And our good friends Chelsea, Rebecca, and James A. Janice are going to be there. And Chelsea can now say that she is in she's in it as well. So this is going to be a really, really fun time. Make sure you guys are going to be checking that out. And what else did I do? Oh, yes. Some of those photos, if you may have missed it, definitely head out to Friday the 13th franchise.com. You can see this great photo of Ted White. Reminds me of one of the ones from, we took a similar photo like this. I got to pull that up for you guys next week. But some really good of Ted's kill, some of Corey Feldman. I guess this is a really rare one. This is really cool. And then Ted and the nurse. Look at the size of Ted White. What a giant. And look at this nurse. She must have been like 5 foot nothing. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share for that stuff tonight. Beyond that, I don't know, guys. I think it's just kind of one of those things. We're going to have to let this play out. We're 13 or 12 days away now from the release of Sweet Revenge. It will be released on, let me see. I thought I just had that up. I did. I keep going back and forth. I really apologize for this. Let me see. Boom. And then kind of go in there and then nope. There we go. It's going to release here in the Jason Universe YouTube. So let's see what's going on in Jason Universe. They literally just got their teaser. They have 5,000 subscribers, 85,000 views, 48,000 views. They got to drive more people to this channel. So I don't know. I guess we're all going to watch it. I can't imagine that people aren't going to watch it. There's a lot of hate going around, but there's nothing you can really do about that stuff. Until they release it and they wow us and we will see. I'm not entirely thrilled about Mike P. Nelson taking a lap to take over the whole thing. I don't feel like I said in the video, I don't feel like he is quite the right person to do it. Now, these are never personal feelings. These are just sort of me acting as a fan. Like, who do I want to coach my baseball team? Do you want, the legendary coach, or do you want the upstart who's sort of like struggled with a few, startup teams? So, that's just sort of how I see him. Maybe other people see him differently, and maybe I'm being unfair. I know some people are in favor of that, so you never know. The important thing is that things are in the works. I think that we can all but assume that Atomic Monster and Blumhouse are working on a film with the Jason universe. It's going to be some time before we get that. There was also another user, Anthony D. I'm actually going to look him up very quickly right now. And he did this thing this week with he modded one of the videos to make it look like a single player Friday the 13th game. And I want to pull up this clip very shortly. Here it is right here. Come on. Boop, boop. Oh, not do that. Sorry, guys. Whoa. I have completely fumbled the bag, as they say. We're going back to here. We're going back to here. Oh, add to stage. Boom. Look at this. I'm going to do this. If I do that, look at this. It's as if it's like a single player Jason game. I can't remember what game he said, but watch this. It's a really cool, I don't know, maybe I can do. So I predict that this is what we're going to be getting. Something that feels like Dead by Daylight with Friday the 13th, interactive menus where you have to hit buttons and sort of escape out of situations. Like this is such a beautiful sequence with Jason put into the moment. This is fucking fire. And I would play the shit out of this game over and over again, especially if there's like 1,000 different ways. Um, if there's like 1,000 different ways to play it, you know what I mean? So there's different outcomes. I'm definitely down for that. Obviously, I would be down for the multiplayer to come back as well. But from the reports that I'm sort of getting and what I'm piecing together from the information that we have, I'm going to say that it's probably going to be a first person game like this. That's an experience, dead by Until Dawn style, like choose your own adventure with a group of characters that can jump back and forth. That seems to be the way to do it, which I think would be a lot of fun either way. Obviously, I want the multiplayer back. Maybe that comes down the line, but as far as first things out the gate, that's probably what to expect. So there are some things are coming into focus. You know what I mean? Things are coming into focus. Sweet Revenge is sort of a blip. Oh yeah, I didn't even go into like the whole point of why I wanted to look at all the Angry Orchard stuff. But if you look at all the Angry Orchard stuff and you look at the way that that's all laid out, they've been planning this launch for a year. They couldn't pivot last August because that's how long it takes to launch a brand thing like this. So once those things were chosen without sort of the real, how would you say it? There's no when you bring people into a room and you ask them questions. I'm having such a brain fart right now, but you're just getting a consensus about like from the public of what they think, running this by people. I'm not sure or 1,000% sure that when these things were all passed back and forth, that they had sort of maybe the best attitude in the room. It was maybe everything was too good, too easy type thing. And that moving forward, they really need to listen to the fans, and that after this Angry Orchard thing passes, this is a great opportunity to make a pivot. This is a great opportunity to get in there and figure out what works and what doesn't, and see the things that are going to, get people excited. The other thing I want to talk about, speaking of that, is, when Hunter brought up the fact that Bobby Barsimian said sequel movie. So it's going to be interesting to see what that means by sequel movie, because what I believe that means is that is a return to undead Jason, which is my biggest pitch of what I would say. If you're going to do Friday the 13th, uber grounded, we're going to explain everything with logic and the story of Pamela and the story of young Jason and how he drowned or didn't drown and survived and went missing and all these different things. That's going to take seasons to weave and make sense. That when it comes to the theater, skip all that shit. Get right to Jason is an undead revenant that lives in the forest and people disturb him and he comes out. You just need to give us a good story about how people disturb them, or how people disturb him, and how much do they deserve to get killed. And that's really what was the consensus behind Never Hike Alone, which was putting Jason in other movies, not making the formula, but taking Jason, the character, and putting him in other types of stories, because he himself is the draw, not the formula. Add multiple people getting killed in the movie, but don't put him in an old slasher movie formula, because that shit's tried already. That has been ridden hard and put away wet as far as a premise, and you're not going to mine any new material going down the same old path unless you start to tap into lore. And if you want to start messing with lore, you got to get that stuff really, really straight. And if he's undead, I don't know how much you really want to lean into that. It's just what elements you want to pluck. Pamela's head. It would be great to bring that back and not make it a thing that's sort of like brushed off to the side, but is an important tool, obviously in the storytelling of it all. It's the Christie family. It's the camp itself. The camp itself is going to be a destination to go see and experience in the film. That's another part that's huge. And obviously Jason and what you do with him, it's the situations that make Jason different from every other slasher that, that will take him away. He's not Michael Myers. It's not just stalk and slash. It's the atmosphere of the camp and the way that he attacks from the places you least expect it. And then the brutality nature of what happens after he's attacked. The sudden attacks, the stalking attacks, different types of, scenes that are all going to weave together until there's only one character left. And then that final girl sequence has to be something that is mwah. That's got to be your big grand finale. And you have yourself a movie. If you venture too far from that, if you try to rewrite the rule books on everything that's Jason, you're going to get people caught up in the spokes of, what happened to this? I think what they're listening to fans in the sense that and I'm even sort of disappointed in the fact that they're just going to lean into it in a certain point, but the fact that they're just going to put a Jason out there with an axe mark in his head and they're not going to explain anything about that the original mask got destroyed in part 7 and part 8 and that it's been missing since there, what happened in hell. I think it's just going to kind of be like we're wiping the shit off the windshield and we're just driving forward and we're going to pretend like it was never there, but we understand the overarching story of Jason and it's sort of like a pseudo part 6-ish and mixed in other things sequel to, Friday the 13th as you used to know it, and that Jason. And maybe that is, and I wonder if that is the Jason, the spirit of the original Paramount Jason and sort of what was kind of there in New Line, whatever, some sort of amalgamation between those two Jasons that we know, is that they're keeping that spiritual Jason alive in sort of like it's like almost like the original Godzilla is still carrying on the series, no matter how silly the Showa series got, it's still bounced around. I think that's maybe what they're talking about, which I'm not against. It's just a matter of context. Jason is such an important character. You can't just brush over the details that surround him, because it's the details that surround him that elevate him. If he's asked to carry a shitty plot, it's just not going to get that extra oomph that it needs to really give the studios confidence that they need to make 2 or 3 or 4 more of these. And that's, as a fan, the ultimate thing that I want. Good enough content that makes other people look around and other brands look around and other studios look, or at least every executives in the studio go around and be like, okay, we need to put our investments into the Friday the 13th brand because we know that there's a fan base that supports it. It generates a lot of money and it's the hot thing at the theater right now. And that's hopefully what it will be. And when all these things sort of land, that's going to be, the real test of what's going on with the Jason universe and the revival and redemption story of Friday the 13th after all these years of botched sequels and lawsuit bullshit. We're finally here actually putting, rubber to the road. People are, are getting stuff done. Things are being made. And now the thing is, can they keep up the momentum? Can this keep happening? Is this deal with Angry Orchard something that's going to happen every October? We have Universal Studios Hollywood, and I talked to when I talked to Hunter, he is actually going to experience the Jason Universe Hollywood Horror Nights experience, and he's going to come back and report on that for us. So you're definitely going to have to check in a few weeks when he does that. We'll have him back on, maybe live this time, and we'll talk about the haunt, and maybe some of you would like to know what's kind of going on there. So I've talked a lot tonight. It has been an hour and 10 minutes. I'm not getting off. I'm jumping in for questions. So if you guys want to ask some questions, now is the time. I'm going to clear some stuff off my screen and just make it a little bit more comfortable here because my eyes are dancing around and looking at so many different things. But I'd love to answer some questions if you guys have anything that you want to see, as far as, the announcements for Friday the 13th and all that fun stuff. And while I'm waiting for questions, I'm going to keep this little logo up and I'm going to slide over. Again, if you guys ever want to reach out and contact me at Womp Stomp Films, at Vincent DiSanti on social media, you can always email me at wompstompfilms@gmail.com. Let's see. Just make Friday the 13th part 12 and 13 in the regular Friday the 13th timeline. So we already have Friday the 13th part 12. That is 2009. So, Friday the 13th would be interesting. I honestly think that if they wanted to jump right back in, that Never Hike Alone is the way in. And Never Hike Alone 3 would be the ultimate story for them. I really do believe that. Let's see. Shot by Shot. I can't seem to find your channel. Hey, where's it going? Let me see. What else is going there? I'm really excited to see a move where Jason is almost exactly like Ghost Jason. Everyone who goes into the woods disappears, and Jason is a demonic entity that people live in fear. Hey, I agree. I think that would work. Let me see. Do we have any other questions here? And I may have to wait for the delay for this to actually get up. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, cool. Just scraping through. Well, I mean, if you guys got no questions, it's Friday night. It's only 9:30 out here. I don't know what time it is where you guys are, but I'm sure there's plenty to do. I do want to thank you all. Actually, here's a good thing that came on. There are a million things you could do with Jason. Do we feel like Jason being tied to the location, as it seems implied in MO, is the right way to go, or do we have Jason treading on new ground? There are things you sort of have to start at the foundation. I think that what needs to be done is Crystal Lake needs to be made interesting. And I think that that's what I tried to do in Never Hike Alone, was like the experience of traveling through Crystal Lake had its own weight and gold as an experience for the viewer, and someone with an actual budget versus us working through working through an abandoned camp was great. And we had a lot of things, but with a budget, what we could have done even more would have been really, really special in the way we could address those sets and use that to tell story. I think at some point it has to go back to the camp. Maybe, maybe it starts outside the camp, but if you want to get Jason, he's somewhere in there and it's a maze. It's a scary place to be. It's a scary place to search. I think what happens a lot in these movies is that everybody gets too casual with walking around Crystal Lake without having any sense of fear of being in danger. And then when they do, it's sort of like, it really isn't, anything meaty to really feel like, oh my God, I feel like that was one of the things of 2009. It was really underutilized in that sense. It really needs to be its own character. If they can make Crystal Lake its own character, that's great. And I think that, where else does Jason go? I think you can grow out of the first, basically, like if you follow the old track of the old Friday the 13th, is that you have Jason is in his home, and then he's lured out from Packanack, and then his whole cover is blown because Ginny survives, and then he spends parts 3 and 4 on the run. So on that event of him being on the run, that's where you get him to go to different places and go to different things, because he's running from something that is actually actively pursuing him, and he has motivation to do that. So it actually makes sense versus him just randomly showing up in different places and killing people. It feels a little bit more on character for him to be hunkered down, and then as he's escaping, he's killing out of the necessity because he's trying to, escape. You know what I mean? How would I be able to pitch my idea to them? Go to the Crystal Lake, go to that thing. You can probably pitch to him there. Hi, Vincent. Do you like the visual of the new Jason that chose the skinny chews of him? I did notice he was fairly skinny in this one. I can't say much because I'm fairly skinny myself. I'm pretty, and I saw some stuff from Skylar White that really, really wasn't Brad. That his use of, I think Zach, his use of sort of like a teen Jason is going to be interesting. You know what I mean? And of hulking, like twisted metal, like mortal sin that never made sense to me. Do you think the sequel movie will be a sequel to the Camp Crystal Lake show? Possibility, but if it's going to come in the next year or so, then I don't think they're going to be connected. I think that that's a smart thing to do, is to not have them connected. Have your Chucky TV series and your Child's Play movie, like 2 separate camps, 2 separate Jasons, 2 separate slices of pizza. Let them each be their own thing and grow into, like, the Crystal Lake series could grow into its own undead world eventually. And, the Jason in the film universe can look back at his past in a certain way. And those things don't necessarily have to line up exactly. You know what I mean? You have to excuse me. Excuse me. Kissinger was built when he played Jason. His brother used to play with the Canadian football team. Yeah, he was pretty big. He's six, he's really tall. I think like 6'7". Again, I think too big. I think too big for Jason. I got one question. I'm going to meet CJ Graham next month. Should I dress as his Jason, though he's seen a million people dress as him, or just introduce him to my own custom outfit? Show him your own custom outfit. I'm going to say that to everybody every single time, saying that you to definitely do that. Oh, Marcy's back. That's great to know. I might be buffering, dude. I think I might be slowing down. Oh, wow. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I may be back now. It feels like it's running better now. What is your favorite, Jason? Mine's the 2009 remake, not the 2009. My favorite is Part 5 Dream Sequence. I think it's okay now. Let's jump to Marcy. I'm sorry, but I'm not excited. It looks cheaper than your fan film, even though Friday the 13th has never been cinematic. There's still passable 80s cheese. I even like the look of the remake, but not Jurassic Shark level look. That's funny. Well, thank you for letting us know what you think, Marcy. Yeah, I think that I'm going to pull this down. I think that in the long run, do I love it? I don't love it. I'm trying to just see what it is. I think right now, I think the first part was disappointment, and now that we've passed through our disappointment, we have to move on to acceptance, and we're going to see what it is. We're going to see what they bring. They may bring the pain when it comes to the effects. I mean, they have a much more budget. They're able to do some things that some of the Friday the 13th fan films get. If this was a fan film, I'd be like, that looks like a slick looking fan film. Finally, somebody else figured out like really how to do, some high level stuff. So it's not a necessarily bad thing. It's just a matter of it compared to the fan films. The fan films bring you so much variety of life and spice and different things. And it may not be that, I think what somebody said was like, you're going to get a very high tier level of acting with this one, which may be true. I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, they're probably independent actors that we would hire out here for stuff anyway. None of them are, named actors that we can see. So, I guess we'll see. We just have to kind of wait and see. Jason on the Run reminds me of a guy I heard who dropped out of society. He used to break into vacation cabins and steal food and supplies. I think it was 20 years before he was gay. See, that's a cool story. Kissinger was 6'5", Mears was 6'5" with platform boots. Do you want to see more Jason meet some Universal monster? Yeah, I would watch that. Which dream sequence reminds of the window scene from Jason Part 5? I think that's the best look to ever bring back. Yeah, I like the one where he's in the mirror with the double-sided X. Let's see. 6'7" be way too big. Hard to hide even when you're leaning to that height. I agree. I might start to do this. I seen Derek Mears on the Flash TV series. Let me see. Oh, Chuck Phelps is checking in. I think I'm going to bog down again. Here we go. Sorry, guys. Hey, what's up, Chuck? Good to see you. Let's see. Hot take. Jason should be a bit above average height, 6 foot, but really wide. Oh, wide. You want thick Jason. Sorry, guys. I'm just doing that. Ghost Jason says, we want Womp Stomp. I agree. Let's see. What about a story such as Jason as Jaws, an entire story on Crystal Lake with Jason essentially as the shark? I would love that. That would be a drama. In fact, the Friday the 13th that I wrote, the original Friday the 13th, is Jaws and First Blood with Jason, if that makes sense. So that would be my pitch to the studios, is make Jaws meets Jason. Jaws meets Jason, First Blood meets Jason, and really stick to it. Don't like venture off from that, and play with it at the best way you can. Not fat Jason. Thick Jason. There's a difference. Thick is still good. Do you think that in Sweet Revenge, Jason's version will be the zombie or human version? I don't know. It actually kind of looks like the version that they were going to use on the TV show, the more I look at it and study it. So I don't know. I think he's going to be somewhere in between. I mean, this is a Friday the 13th reboot. I thought they had made a bigger budget, but it looks like the Jeepers Creepers reboot a few years ago, maybe even cheaper. I'm sorry to do the hate. No, it does. It has that. So there's definitely a look right now in the independent world of like how that's achieved a certain look. And it's just so crisp, like an apple, that you can kind of tell when something is sort of like it's produced well, but it doesn't have the extra nudge to make it feel cinematic. And so this definitely feels very clean and sterile and commercial, which is why you see it that way. But it also is a 13-minute commercial. And maybe they're working with the types of materials that they shoot the commercials with instead of, I mean, it's the same stuff, but there's just a certain style and look. So I wonder if a certain agency is supplying certain things because of it being more of an advertisement versus a narrative. So that could be a thing. So somebody caught that. I'm glad somebody did that. Let me see. This will be probably one of my last ones. What if there was a movie about Jason as the main character, like Predator is the protagonist in Badlands? Yes, I would watch that. In fact, The Ghost of Crystal Lake would be that if I could ever get back into finishing it. But I would love that. And I would love to have a Predator Badlands thing. And let's talk about Predator Badlands for a little bit. Super pumped for that. Super pumped to hear all the stuff that's kind of going down. And I cannot wait for Predator Badlands. It's the White Claw of short films, let's be honest. I mean, literally, except it's Exciter. U.S. Marine Corps, retired. Friday the 13th has always been my favorite movie. First horror series, seen them all. Love your channel. Weird note, Friday the 13th, November 9, Afghanistan. I'm the sole survivor of a 5-man vehicle IED. Wow. That is something. In fact, why don't you, the Mid-Coast of Maine guy, huh? Why don't you email me? I'd love to hear your story. I'm looking for something that's unique for something in the Crystal Lake. I mean, not the Crystal Lake, my little thing that I'm writing. I would love to talk to you and hear some stories maybe that would help me like really put like a real life context to the character that's in the thing. But you should email me at wompstompfilms@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your story. This thing is probably lagging like hell. I mean, I've been carrying a lot of people tonight too, which thank you everybody for sticking around this long. We're almost an hour and a half into it. The long ones I've been leaving behind me. I've been sticking to an hour, but there's a lot to cover this week. I expect to working with people and not, well, no, because Mike does entertainment too. So who knows? Well, thank you, Marcy. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Hey, you got a fellow Mainer there. Hey, oh, mainly Jason. Now I get it. We all have to. You guys got to come out and meet me at one of these shows coming up. Predator Badlands and Mortal Kombat 2 this fall, dude. I am so there for both these movies. I'm right there with you. Here we go. I think Suit Revenge looks cool, but I think it should have been a feature film instead of a short film. I don't know. It's just not a very thick plot there. This is a YouTube survivor from Survivor, and then follow me around as an IED medevac on YouTube. All right. Oh, damn. I'm going to have to check that out. Please email this stuff to me because this stuff kind of goes away afterwards. And I can kind of get that. Oh, Naked Gun. I cannot wait to catch Naked Gun. That's definitely what I'm looking forward to doing this weekend. I do want to make a thing called Roy Lives. It would be a spoof on Jason Lives. With Reggie the Reckless coming back, I think we'd bring back as much of the cast as we could. I definitely do have some ideas there. Let me see. What do you guys think if Blumhouse took over Friday the 13th? I'm actually okay for it. I think that like a lot of people are confusing Blumhouse for like, oh, all this stuff. Like it depends on who's directing it. And if it's James Wan and Atomic Monster, that's different than David Gordon Green. And I can't remember his company. So, I think a lot of the things that people had issues with on Halloween came from the David Gordon Green camp. And Blumhouse gave them everything they need to make a really good movie. I mean, the films looked great. All the effects looked great. They pushed all the kills. They did all that stuff. Like it delivered there. The story was from David Gordon Green. So if it comes from James Wan or if it's coming from the Blumhouse camp, at least they're going to have somebody in there that hopefully knows what they're doing. Wow, you're in South Africa, dude. I did watch the new Fantastic Four. I saw it the other night. I liked it. It was pretty funny. It's weird how I saw Superman 2, and it's just interesting how, a lot of the films right now that are really successful, you're just jumping into a world that already exists. You're not going through the origin stories of everything. So that may be a note for the Jason universe, to say probably good to just jump into a sequel legacy thing and not to explain shit. Just keep the story going because we already know it because we've already all watched all the other films. Man's laughter going on the floor laughing. That's funny. Why can't there be any more movie history on Jason's mom? Comics say she had a crazy background, need more Yeah, I agree with that too. Well, we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's at the helm of it. You know what I mean? And David Gordon Green was at the helm of both those projects. I didn't see I Know What You Did with Last Summer because I heard about the twist and I didn't love it. What deodorant brand does Voorhees use? Axe. Dude, commercial. Sign Womp Stomp Films up for the Axe body commercial with the Jason Universe and Womp Stomp Films collaboration. It's going to happen. All right, guys, it has been a wonderful Friday night. We're closing in on 10 p.m., but it's quarter till 10. But thank you for coming out tonight. Like I said, if anybody is interested in going to that hard cider event on August 13th, it's like basically 45 minutes north of New York. Tickets are free. Go to the Angry Orchard website, get yourself a ticket, email me, show me the ticket, and I will send you a Womp Stomp Films shirt to wear to the premiere so you can walk around and represent Womp Stomp Films, because after all, we want Womp Stomp. Keep hashtagging and sharing stuff from the Jason universe. Tell them we don't bite. We may have some criticisms. We may have some harsh truths from the fans, but at the end of the day, we love Friday the 13th. We love Jason Voorhees. We love Mama Pam Voorhees. Elias can go screw himself. Deadbeat dad. We don't need him. No show. Just get rid of him. But everything else, I just want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight, for supporting the films. Remember, Ghost in the Fog is still available. Oh, before I go, I have the new inserts for the new Blu-rays that are coming in very, very soon. And we're going to start with Never Hike Alone 1. Ooh, look at that. And then you get your insert. And then there's Never Hike in the Snow. Ooh. You get your insert. And then we have Never Hike Alone 2. Boop. And so these 3 Blu-rays have been completed to replenish our supply. Stuff is still shipping for the Indiegogo for Never Hike Alone 2. That stuff is almost done. I think we're under 300 orders to go, international and big. We're still working on the big packages. Sorry, we haven't done the warehouse trip yet, but that's definitely planned for this weekend. We're going to have all those brand new Blu-rays at Crystal Lake Nightmares, along with brand new VHS tapes. We have a new VHS tape vendor, Cryptic Carousel. Can't wait to show you the work that they're doing. They're getting us stuff next week. I will have it. I will show it to you. We're going to be in stock. So all future campaigns that are coming up, there's going to be no more waits. We have a built-in vendor now that anytime we need 50 Blu-rays, they can send us 50 Blu-rays. We need 150 Blu-rays, 1,000 Blu-rays. We can get anything we needed anytime. We've rebuilt all the menus. Everything's looking great. And I'm really, really excited about this new stuff coming up. So make sure you tune in, maybe next week, maybe the week after, depending on how it goes. I believe I will be around next weekend. No, next weekend. Wow. Next weekend is Crystal Lake Nightmare. So I will not be here. I will be in Los Angeles. And then the following weekend, I will be flying back from Los Angeles because I'm spending the week there. So you're probably not going to see me for a couple of weeks. But until then, make sure you guys are checking out the channel, spreading around Womp Stomp Films, Never Hike Alone. Keep an eye out for more news about The Bonding, about our short films, Gimme, about Slay, about How the Lonely Keep, about all these projects that we're on collabing in that are going to be showing at film festivals and doing new launches pretty soon. And also congratulations to the Slay project for hitting its goal. I don't know if I got to do that last time, but so you guys have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully you guys have there we go. Okay, I just want to make sure I had that set up. Okay, anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there, be good to each other, and until next time, I will see you on the trails. Have a good one, everybody.